Okay, we dealt with yesterday in the Gemara Machlokes whether the chiyuv to feed one's wife is a chiyuv deraisa derabanan. So there was derabanan, and then we brought in the pasuk a share of his kesuvos for ona. Share, according to one opinion, was food. According to other opinion, it was ona, marital relations. According to the last opinion, Rezman Yaakov, it was referring to clothing. So we're up to 2 dots on Mem Ches Amid Aleph, about 5 or 6 lines down. Tana Reb Yosef, Sheira, Zukir of Basa, right? Sheira, when Sheira refers to when one has relations with his wife, it should be with Kir of Basa. You shouldn't go ahead and have the meaning of the Persians. They have tashmish in their clothing. It's funny, the Prasayim, in certain places we see they were big snuas in the base. Like they would snuas to Gemara and Brachas. Over here also it seems even b'shas tashmish they would snuas, but to over exaggerated. In fact, one is not supposed to wear their clothing according to this Gemara. A person says, I can only live with her physically if I'm wearing my clothing and she's wearing her clothing. Then she leaves and give ksuba, because she'era, she's entitled to she'era, she's entitled to kir of basar, she's entitled to have that closeness. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda Aimer, afilu ani sheb Yisrael. Afilu ani Yisrael is shaykh, the Mishnah said, to 2 flute players and 1 mekonis, 1 dirger. I don't know if that's a word, it probably is not a dirger. Someone who would go ahead and be maspid and say things over. So it seems to be they had hired these people who would wail, they would play flutes, and it seemed to be that no matter who you are, and a wife, no matter what his monetary status is, she by her levaya is entitled to 2 people playing flutes and 1 going ahead and being mekonim, one lamenting. And that says the word mechlal. When Rabbi Yehuda says Afili Onisha Yisrael has to provide that, mechlal we can infer the Tanakama Savar Hani Loi. Now that you don't have to provide 2, and you don't have to provide mekonis. In other words, he argues. Now the Gemara wants to know what exactly is the story. Hechidani, Ida Urcha, if this is the norm that 2 and 1, my time in Tanakama, the Amaloi, be the Lav Urcha, and 2 and 1 is not the common, my time with Rabbi Yehuda. In other words, we should go after the commonality, what's usually provided by a levaya. It doesn't like tzricha kigain the urcha didei v'lav urcha dida. It's his way to have 2 and 1 and not hers. In other words, her status is a little lower. When do we say that when a woman gets married, she wins both ways? If he is of a higher status, then she elevates to him. And if she is a higher status, then any redes, imo, she doesn't have to go down to his status. Either way, she wins. Again, if he's a higher status, she elevates to that. And if she is a higher status, then he doesn't downgrade her. That's hani mili mechayim, that's when she's alive. Aval achamisaloi, once she's dead, so then even though it's speaking where it's not her place, therefore what you don't have to provide it. I feel so, and Rabbi Yehuda said, no, I feel misa, even after misa, since it's his norm to provide 2 and 1, then what she would again be ola to that. That's what the machlokes is contingent upon whether it's not her norm, it's his norm. So do we have the same status as a lifetime that she'd be ola or no? So if she has that status, the Tanakama, she doesn't have that status. She would still have that status. Amrav Krista Amamar Ukva, Halach Rabbi Yehuda, the halach is the conjunction of Rabbi Yehuda that Afilu Ani Yisrael has to provide his wife with two flute players and one woman lamenting her. Amrav Krista Amar Ukva. Since we mentioned one din of Rav Krista and Rav Ukva, we're going to continue. Mishin Ishtate, a person who unfortunately loses his marbles. Bezdin Yordin L'Chasav. Bezdin can go down to his property. Vizonin and they can provide parnasa for what? For his wife. Ubanov ubanoisav v'davar acher, and not only for his wife, but even for his children and davar acher, which we're going to see in a second what that is. So Amalei Ravina Ravashi, Maishna Mehad Tanya, Misha Halach Medina Sayam, the person that goes overseas, the Ishtoi Toivas Mizainais, and the woman goes ahead and claims on Mizainis, Bezdin Yardin Linachasav, Bezdin goes down to his property, Vizainin and Farnasin as Ishtoi, Avloi Bana Rubinaisa, Avloi Davaracher. Okay, so the question is like this. Where he loses it, in both cases, he's not around. In the first case, he's not around in his mind. In the second case, he's not around physically. So in both cases, the wife will be provided from the estate, but only in the first case would Rav Chisda name of Ruka say that the children will be provided from the state. But once you go over a state, once he goes overseas, not. What's the difference? So Amalei, Rav Ashi said to Ravina, doesn't make a difference to you whether he's Yoitze Ladas or Yoitze Shaloi Ladas. Rashi explains this far, guys. When a person loses it, obviously he didn't have time, excuse the pun, he wasn't in the frame of mind to go ahead and make conditions, provide for this, provide for that. Masha'en Kain, if he goes overseas, so clearly he knows he could be away for a while, and had he wanted the children to be provided from the estate, he would have said something. The woman is provided from the state side by side. It doesn't make a difference. So therefore, whether he loses it or he's a frame of mind, she gets. But vis-a-vis the kids, in the case of Nishtata, obviously they should get, because again, he wasn't in any condition to make a condition not. Where he was healthy and well and went overseas, had he wanted the children to be provided from the estate while he was gone, he would have said so, and he didn't. So that's the difference between the two. That's what Rav Ashi said to Ravina. Now, my Davar Acher, it says Davar Acher. What is the Davar Acher? So now what? Again, you don't have to provide for your kids. We're going to see a brisa. You could send your kid to work 6 years old. Yeah, we don't have a tuition. I'm going to tell you, they made a lot less money, but the expenses were a lot less. Okay, now, my Davar Acher. So Rav Chisda Amar Zeh Tachshit, Rav Yosef Omer Tzedakah. Rav Yosef says that Davar Acher, you provide perfume. Rav Yosef, that's what Rav Chisda says, and Rav Yosef says tzedakah, that you would take from the estate tzedakah. Now, the question is, what is the Davar Acher going on the Nishtata or on the Brisa? In other words, the first lashon is the lashon of Rav Chisda and Mar Ukva, and the second lashon is the lashon of the Brisa. So, guys, watch. In the first lashon, you provide Davar Acher. Good. So now, if you learn that way, here's the way you learn the Gemara. If you learn that way, meaning you have to provide Davar Acher. So if that's the case, here's the way you read the Gemara. Okay. Manda Omar Tachshit, like the Manda Omar that the Davar Acher, guys, is perfume, meaning you have to provide perfume. Kol Shgein Tzedakah. Certainly you have to provide tzedakah. Manda Omar Tzedakah, but the one who says from the estate, why, if he loses it, you provide tzedakah, al tachshit, no, yavinala, you give to her, like this navel. So according to this way, again, you won't be gairis this then. According to this, you won't be gairis this. The other way to learn, it's going in the brisa, that you don't provide davar acher. So the mandam says that you don't provide a tachshit, right? You don't provide a tachshit, then kol shkein tzedakah. But the Mandi Amma who says you don't provide tzedakah, but maybe a tachshit you would provide because of the lashon of nivel, and that's the way Rashi learns. Amar Rav Chia bar Avin, Amar Rav Huna, Misha halach Medina Sayam. Someone goes overseas, Umesa Ishto, and his wife dies, unfortunately. Now, Bezdin Yardin and Chasav, the Kayvin Isa. Bezdin can go to pay for the funeral and the kfura. Bezdin can go from the estate, right? The Kayvin Isa lefi kfaydai says the more lefi kfaydai, lefi kfayda. Only lefi his covet and what, and not her covet. Certainly, what again? You're going to put her on a higher level, so she should be provided, right? So ema af lefi kfaydai, even lefi kfaydai. Right? Let's see Rashi over here. The kfi kfaydai v'le kfi kfayda bitmia midi de orcha v'lav orcha milay boy lemevad la ha v'vada ini yaredes imay. She doesn't go down to his level if it's less. Right? I feel him on the less and even if you can say she doesn't ascend after Misa, any he would hold you don't go down. So what do you mean lefi kfaydai? Meaning, guys, that she goes, there's no way you're not going to provide her a higher funeral. You're not going to go down to his level. That's what the Gemara's theme is. So the Gemara says, says, even I guess if it's more. Hakamashmalan, the Hakamashmalan, Oile Imai, the Eni Yaredas Imai, Afil Achamisa. And the Chiddush is that she's Oile with him if he's a higher status, and if she's a higher status, she doesn't go down, right? That she doesn't go down. So Amar of Masna, Ha'omer im Mesa Loitik Brum Minachasav, if he says, if she dies, do not bury you from my property, Shainun Loy. You listen to him, right? You listen to him. If you listen to him, why? Maishna ki Amar the Naflo Nichse Kama Yasmi. Why is it a difference if they're not right? If that saying that Nafli, she's falling in front of the assignment, they don't have to bury her. Even if he wouldn't have said anything, that it would fall in front of the assignment. Let's see Rashi here. Emesa Ishtoi says not to bury Shaiman Loi. The Kivin Dehu Meis V'chayeha, since she died in his lifetime, the He Goiv Kesuvasa. Where am I going on? Excuse me, no. Kivin Dehu Meis V'chayeha. In other words, he's dying, guys. This guy's a shchivim. Guys, here's the case. He's dying, fellas. Here's the case. He's dying, right? He's dying, and he says, "Listen, when I die, what's going to happen? She's going to collect a ksuba. Once she collects the ksuba, it's not upon the estate to bury her." Says Rashi, "The kivin dehu meis b'chayeha, since he preceded her, he died in her lifetime. The he gaiv ksuvasa ein chayev l'koivra. Did nan? We're going to learn later on. Yersheha yershek ksubasa." The inheritors, those who inherit a kasuba, they're mechayev to bury her. So the Gemara wants to know, why did he have to say anything? If what happens, if she would die, then they would have to bury her. They would not have to bury her. No. Why is it different if they would fall in front of the assignment? When they fall in front of the assignment, you don't have to bury. So pshita that they don't have to bury. So what is he gaining by saying this? Ella. So what did Rav Masna mean, guys? Hoima imes who? Not if she dies, if he dies. Meaning, imes who loitik baruhu minachasav. Nothing about her. You know what the guy says? He says, "Listen, guys, listen, look at me." He says, "If I die, then don't pay. Don't let the funds." Let the funds pay for my burial. I don't want to have to pay for it. Let them buy me a grave. Let them go through the funeral expenses. I don't want that. So he says, "In Mesu loy tikru min chasav ein shainim loy." We don't listen to him. Lav kolimenu shiyasha es banav yapalatz tzibur. No person has the capacity to go ahead and make his children wealthy, meaning save the expense and throw the expense on the tzibur. That you can't do. That you can't do. Okay, but so the case of Mesa, we're not speaking. Ramas's case of Mesa is no chiddush. There's no chiddush that a person can say that, because once she collects the ksuba, she's not upon the estate to bury her. And the Gemara says he doesn't have to say anything to Shchimera, because once he dies and she collects the ksuba, automatically she can't. It's not going to be on the children. Elama. So we say it's his Ramas's chiddush is when he says if I die, don't take any money to bury from his estate. We don't listen to him. We take the money from his estate, because we don't want the tzibur to go ahead and be forced to bury him. Says the Mishnah, La'olam hi b'shusa av. Okay, outside a few. We've had plenty of gemaras that discuss erisin and nesuin. So just going back to our Yavamis days, if you have a girl who marries a kohen, she doesn't eat truma. She doesn't eat truma as an arusa until she's in a suah. Said Midrash, she does. We're worried about she's going to bring the food into the house. We're worried that the kohen may find some problem with her and want to divorce her. Simple. But again, if she's mizana in that state, she's chayv skila. She's mizana in that state. She's chayv skila. Nairu Marasa gets skila. Fascinating. The husband doesn't have to go ahead and provide food for her, and when she's in arusa, once she's in a suah, then she's totally in the jurisdiction of the husband. He has to provide food for her and so on. there is a state in between Erisin and Nesuin. The transfer of the girl to the rishus of the husband. Let's say it's done through an emissary, through a shliach. What's the halacha in that transitory period? That's the Mishnah is discussing. So la'olam he b'rishus ha'av, la'olam she's in the rishus of the father, and therefore she won't eat truma, and therefore if she finds anything what the father will not learn the schus, all the schusim that we mentioned, he would retain. Ad shetikanes amid beis, ad shetikanes the rishus habal, until she enters the rishus of the baal, and then once she gets in the rishus of the baal, lin is suin. Okay, what does nesuin mean? Rashi claim shetikanes lechuppah l'shem nesuin. You put her in a chuppah l'shem nesuin. Shetei mesoyer rishus habal. She's now in the rishus of the baal. Again, just for yourselves, fellas, guys, by a chasana, there's three things done. And you should understand. There's a machlokes what chuppah is. When you think of chuppah, you think of standing under the chuppah. That's only one, right? Badecking, chuppah means to cover. The badecking is the cover. There's an opinion that badecking is what is the chuppah. In fact, I've been at weddings where I was one of the eidim, the Eidei Kedushin. They made me to be the Eidei Badekin. In other words, they made me better Badekin. Since that's what is considered chuppah, I would have to watch the Badekin. And the third thing, which is very funny, and again, I tell Chassanim this, the whole idea of the privacy of the room, the yichud room, is not they should have quality time together after they're just married. That might be very very romantic and very nice. But the bottom line is that's pshat of chuppah. He's bringing her in his rishus. He's bringing her into his domain. In fact, my son Yehonasan rented from the caterer. He rented the room that it should be his domain. He be his domain. So those are three examples of what chuppah, what nesuin is, what chuppah is, and that's what happens by a wedding. That's what happens by a wedding. So now, we also saw at the beginning of this Masechta is the birchas erisin and the birchas nesuin. We do both together, right? The first bracha they make is the birchas erisin, and therefore we make a bari piagafen. Then we have the ksuba in between as a hefsek, and then make another bari piagafen. Why? Because that's the birchas nesuin. Because the sheira brachas is birchas nesuin. So it's two different brachas again, which it's good to know. We go to some chasnas we go to, and this is what's going on. Okay, so now the interesting part. So as long as she's in the rishus before chuppah, she's in the rishus of the husband, the father. Once she's given over, she's in the rishus of the husband. Now, masur av l'shluchei habal. Let's say the father gives over to shluchei habal. Harihi b'rishus habal. At that period in time, she's in the rishus of the baal. Right. Holach ha'av im shluchei habal. Let's say he accompanies him. Right. Let's say he accompanies them. Oy shahochu shluchei ha'av im shluchei habal, or the shluchim accompany them. Harihi b'rishus ha'av. She's still in the rishus of the av. Masu shluchei ha'av l'shluchei habal. Harihi b'rishus habal. So therefore, as long as the husband, the father, is keeping some attachment, either by accompanying the shluchim or having his shluchim accompany the shluchim, it still retain jurisdiction. Now, l'inyan what is in rishus? L'inyan what is in the rishus during this transitory period of giving it over and accompanying? What exactly is it? Okay, so here you go. My la'olam says, guys, what does it say? That we began the Mishnah. La'olam he b'rishus ha'av. She's in the rishus ha'av until given over. My la'olam la'fuke me Mishnah Rishayna. The first Mishnah that nan, we had this in the beginning of the Masechta. We will have it later on as well. Okay, let's go back in time. We spoke at forever this 12-month period between Erisin and Nesuin. During that period, the husband is not providing food for what? For the kala. What happens if on day number 365, the year is up, and he doesn't go ahead and, right? So the Mishnah later on, and we saw earlier, that's it. He has to go ahead and provide for her, and she would eat truma. Our Mishnah is saying no. La'olam, even after 12 months, she's still in the rishus of the father, and she can't eat truma. Not like that Mishnah. Once you get to 365, she's now automatically in the rishus. She's never in the rishus of the husband until there's a Masir l'chuppah. It doesn't happen automatically by what? by a time, time conditioned area. It doesn't. Okay, so la'olam, so that's what Kamashma la'olam, she's there forever and does not eat truma, and the husband is not providing for her. Masa av l'shluchi abal harihi b'shus abal. Okay, now Amarav misirasa, when it's siras, misirasa is l'kol chutz mi truma. Okay, what does that mean? Says Rashi. Misirasa l'kol liyarsha u'letamala. If he's a kayin, he would inherit her. If she dies, he could be metamet to her. And if she works, he gets ma'asiyadeha. Ulchal davar ish be'isha kaima mesir shluchim b'makam chuppah. They all everything again. The shluchim accepting. You would ask me, Rabbi Stern. You just told me there's two things. There's erison and there's nesuin, and nesuin's chuppah. And now you're telling me as soon as you give over to the shluchim of the husband, she's in the resus of the husband. Where's the chuppah? Where's the chuppah? Right? There's no chuppah. So Rashi is pointing out, in lieu of chuppah, this Mesira places in the rishus for almost everything. L'inyan, if she's a kohen, he'd be metamata, it's his wife. Right? L'inyan ma'asiyadev, she'd work, he'd get it. If there's a mitzia, B'Shem Eva, he would get it. Right? Right, everything except one thing. She wouldn't eat truma. It's not the same as mamish chuppah. She wouldn't eat truma. Says Rashi. Says the Gemara now. Amarav misirasa l'kol, giving over to the shluchim of the husband would put him in the jurisdiction of the husband lachol for everything. Chutz mi truma. Ravasi Amar afli truma. Ravasi says even truma. In other words, this is mamish like not. It's like mamish like a chuppah. Everything. Rashi says. Ravasiyama afle truma ksava hadam rabbanan arusa loisaychel b'truma mishum shema yimskul lekais beisavia b'tishkalia. Okay, I'll tell you a very interesting svaras and machlokes, guys. Look at me, very interesting machlokes. What's the reason during erison? What's the reason during erison that if she marries a kohen she doesn't eat? We gave two reasons in Masechta Yavamis. One, maybe she'll bring the food home and she'll give it to her daddy and her mommy and her brothers, and it's truma. To avoid that, she doesn't eat. Another pshat is no, she'd eat and eat and eat. The kohen marries her. He looks at her. He says, "There's a mum there, mekach tois. There's no marriage. Nimsa, she was a zar and she couldn't eat truma in the first place." Good. Says Rav, the reason why that she's everything except truma, because we're worried about simpum. We're worried about finding a mum. So therefore, can't eat truma. Because once she gets married to him physically, then he may find a reason to divorce her. Can't eat truma. Ravasi on the hand says, no, the reason why you can't eat truma is because maybe you're going to bring it home to daddy. But you're not going to worry about that now. You just gave it over to the shliach. You gave it over to the shliach. You don't have to worry about it. That's the underlying svaras hamachlokes between the two. Let's see it inside. One more time. Masav l'shluchi abal. Okay. Amarav mesirasa l'kol. You give it over completely. Chutz mi truma, with the exception of truma. You know why? Because Rav is worried about simpum. He's worried about finding something that retroactively will go ahead and destroy the marriage. So therefore, we don't let it eat truma. Ravasi, but no, after truma. Why? Because Ravasi is worried about bringing it home and having mommy and daddy and the relatives. You don't got to worry. She's now in the rishus of what? Of the husband. Therefore, you can even eat truma. Rav Huna Ravasi, who says you can eat truma. So guys, Rav Huna is a Talmud of Rav, and Rav Chia is his son. Important, okay? Rav Huna is a Talmud of Rav, and Rav Chia is his son. So, Rav Huna Ravasi, Chia Barav Ravasi, La'olam hi b'rishus av, La'olam she's in the rishus of the father. Ad shetikanis l'chuppah. So what are you telling me? What do you mean this middle? The question, you need chuppah. What are you talking about? How can you tell me if you go ahead and everything totally? So says the Gemara. So Amalu Rav said, Lav aminu lechu, did I tell you, like Tizlu Basa Ibka, don't we have an answer that there's an easy question to? Don't ask a question that there's an easy answer to. Yachil Lishnui, able to say, Lachal Misirasai, right? Lachal Misirasai, why? Giving over to what? Guys, what's Kinisa L'chuppah? What does it accomplish? You're going from one jurisdiction to another jurisdiction. Very good. Maybe when you give over to Shluchi Abal, shine, it's like in your jurisdiction of the husband. So therefore, it's not a kasha. It's not a kasha. So says Rav to his Talmud Rav Huna and to his son Rav Chia, don't ask a question that you have an obvious answer to. What's the obvious answer? You want to know, you have to see rest of the chuppah. How can you say if you give it over to the shliach that she's totally in the rishus of the husband? You know why? Because einachinami, giving over to the shliach is tantamount to what? You're putting her in a chuppah. You switch, you gave rishus over. Geschmack. Very, very nice Gemara. Ushmul Amar, guys. Shmuel disagrees with Rav. He disagrees with Ravasi. He says she's in her rishus liyushasa. Says Rashi. Shmuel says liyushasa. Go down a little bit. Hud mahani masira. Masira helps in Yerusha. Shem mesa bederech. If she would die on the way, Bal yoirish nidudaisa. The Baal would inherit his dowry. The afagav the omamar. Even though we're going to see later on. Ishto Yarusa, Mesa, and a Yarsha. If she's an Arusa and dies, you don't inherit. Hacha, Kivin de Masra, since the father gave over the girl to the Shluchi Abal, Achule Achel Av Mehashta. Why? Machmas Kir of Nisuin. Since you're going to Nisuin, you're getting close to Nisuin, guess what? You're giving over. Avul Trumo, la first Nadarecha, Shaloi B'Shutfis, but regarding eating Truma, or being mefer without the involvement of the father, because she's not in Rishus yet, it doesn't help. So it's, guys, it's a very, very interesting svara over here. It's fascinating. We thought three shitas. One, shitas Rav. Mesira is kind of l'chuppah, but not totally. Why? Truma. You got to worry. You can't eat truma. What I'm worried about? Maybe you'll find something retroactively divorced and you'll eat B'chayim Yisabei Shemayim. So it is sort of, but not totally. Says Ravasi, it's total. It's mamish like Mesira, it's giving over completely. You're giving over completely. It's mamish, you're giving over completely. That's what Mesira, you're giving it over completely. Says Shmuel, no. Chuppah is chuppah. Giving over to the Shluchi Abal is not chuppah. What is it? One thing, Le'inyan Yerusha. Usually in Arusa, if she dies, then the husband doesn't inherit her. Here, the Mesira to the Mishluchi Abal will help that you inherit her. That will help. You'll inherit her. But the Indian, other things that Chuppah would accomplish, such as Maisi Yedeha, Mitzia, Hafaras Nadarim, completely, that doesn't accomplish. So you have three shitas so far. Three shitas. Good. Reish Lakish Shama looks Subasa. Reish Lakish says, why does Mesira help? It helps the Indian what? The Indian Kesuba. Now, what does that mean? It says, Kesuvos Amaihi, the Mesa, that if she dies, Yarisla, he'll inherit her. Sahina de Shmuel. That's exactly like Shmuel. Some Ravina says, Ravina, Loimar, right? Loimar Kesuvasa me'acha mana. You know what it means, Kesuba? That if he dies at this point in time, she's considered an almana, even though she's still a basula, and she'll only get 100 for the next marriage. She'll only get 100. She'll only get 100 next marriage. That's what it means. Now, let's see Rashi. The shavi almana min anasuin. That even though what there wasn't a nasuin yet, just giving it over. Nonetheless, giving her over will create her being almana from the suin. Afterwards. So, guys, to give you it's look at me, guys. It's a framework of this state of what happens when you give over the chassan, the father gives over to the shluchi abal. To what extent is she in the rishus of the husband? That's really what it is. So we have a four machlokes. Rav says everything except truma. Ravasi says completely. Shmuel says only in Yerusha, and says Reish Lakish to make her an almana in case he dies. That's it. But in other words, but not to say that it's mamish chuppah mamish. Good. Not to say it's mamish mamish. So now we have. It's a good way to understand the boundaries of this Gemara, right? Looking at it as, like I said, there's Erison, there is Nisuin, and now there's this middle thing they called Shluchei Abal, right? This middle thing called Shluchei Abal, and looking at it that way gives us all geschmack to all sugya. Okay. Says the Gemara. Let's finish up. Says the Gemara. We're going to ask a kasha now. Rabbi Yochanan Reb Chanina, a fourth shita. Rabbi Yochanan Reb Chanina, Damar Travayu. Misirasei l'chol ap l'truma. It's like Ravasi. Misiras l'chol ap l'truma. Meisive, we're going to ask a question. If the father accompanies the shluchi abal, or the shluchim of the husband of the father accompany the shluchim of the husband, she has a chutzner on the way, and they go ahead and lodge there, not for the purpose in the su when they walk in there for lodging. And again, it's harishus, right? Even though the kasuba is in the house of a husband, Mesa Avia Yarsha. If she dies, her father will be Yarsha. In other words, she's not in the rishus of the husband yet. She's not, even if the kasuba is in the house of the base pilot in the dunya, that you won't inherit it. Masar Av l'shluchi abal. Once it's given over, he has a chutzner on the way. And he takes her into this rishus for the purpose of the suin. Even the kasuba, the stark kasuba is in the house of the father, it hasn't made it to his rishus yet. And Mesa, she dies, then baila yarsha, the husband will yarsha. In other words, she's considered in the rishus of the husband. That's lirushas. That's regarding Yerusha. Avol letruma ein isha echelis betruma ache tikanes lechupa. A woman does not eat truma until mamish chuppah. Not this middle ground of what? Of giving the shluchei habal. It doesn't work. You don't need truma. So this is a tiyufta lekula. Now mashma, it's a tiyufta on all of them. Okay, so look at Taisus, guys. It's not all of them. The second Taisus from the bottom, tiyufta lekula, lav dafka dekula, ela lahanu da'ami af letruma. It's only to Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Chanina, and Ravasi. Those are the only ones who said truma. It would not be an upshlag what on Rav. It would not be an upshlag on Reish Lakish, and it would be not certainly on Shmuel. Not it would be a raya then. Okay, so very good. So again, obviously, so now it's very nice because it's limiting it. Only Linyan Yarsha, the Linyan Yarsha, you'd be limited to that. Says the Mahukufa Kasha. Now going back analyzing, we had two parts to the Brisa, where the father didn't give up Rishus yet, and the chutzah was hers, and they went in Lilin to lodge. And the second one, when the father gave up Rishus, or she ended up in his chutzah l'shem nesuin. Those are the two clauses of the Brisa. We're going to have a problem with the chutzah part, guys. We're going to have a problem with the chutzah part. Let's see the Gemara. Haguf Kasha. Armin nichnasa imay Lilin. Right? They went together into her jurisdiction, Lilin. Time of the Lilin to lie down, to lodge, to rest. Hastama, without Lilin, in other words, without stating that they went there for the purpose to lodge, Stama will be the Shem Nesuin. Why are they going into together alone? Not alone, that's the Yichub. So Amos Seifa, Nichlasa Imay L'Shem Nesuin. You had if in his Rishus you went on L'Shem Nesuin, Mashma Hastama, Lilin. In other words, what's the stam over here? Is the stam nesuin or not? Like the first one, the stam is what? Is nesuin. Like the second one, the stam is lilin. So Ravashi, stami katani. You're learning, you're comparing one inference to another inference. Let's look at the rishus. Stam chatzadida. Stam, if you go into a chatzadida, lilin. Again, you're not going into his rishus. So obviously not going into his rishus. It's not like a chup. It's not nesuin. Stam chatzadidei linesuin. But stam chatzah, his chatzah would be what? Linesuin. Okay, so that would be the difference. Chatzah dida lilin, stam chatzah dida linesuin. Tana. Masa av l'shluchi abal. So now the father gives over the shluchi abal. Vizinsa harezu bechenek. She's an Ira, guys. She's an Ira. But the fact that she was given over to Rishus, what does it do? It takes off the Arusa part. Remember, you have to fit in the box. It's Naira, Bisula, Murasa. She's not Murasa anymore. In other words, that helps, even if you're going to hold that it's not full-fledged Nesuin, giving her over to what? To the Shluchi Habal takes off a little bit that she's not an Arusa. It's like a hybrid. You're not totally in his Rishus, but you're no longer in the father's Rishus. Says the Gemara, so if she's Mizana, she gets the punishment of an Ashes Ish, which is Chenek. Menoni Mili, how do you know this? Rav Ami Barchama Omakra, Liz Nois Beisavia, Prat, this would exclude, it says, the pasuk says Liz Nois Beisavia. What's the lashon of the lashon of the pasuk is El Pesach Beisavia. You take the naira out, if you recall, to the father's house, usakluha, and you give him skila and she'iram, base aviha. So it has to be listed. Why? Because she was lisnais base avia. He asab in the vala bizos lisnais base avia. She didn't in the vala lisnais base avia. She's no longer base avia. In other words, that box is not checked off. Therefore, what? She's a regular Eishasish, a regular adulterish. She's mechenek and not skila. Not skila. Oh, guys, 1 second. Why say this hybrid? Why don't you say pratla nichlas l'chuppah? It's very nice. The heads is beautiful, guys. You understand, fellas? Why don't we say that she's an arusa till she gets to chuppah? You tell me she's not arusa anymore when she's given to Beis Abal? Amarava Amali Ami chuppah behedik siva. Chuppah is it says openly. It says kia naira besula me'urasa leish. When you have a naira besula that is engaged to a man, naira v'loy by geres, a naira 12 in a day until 12 and 6 months. After 6 months, not besula v'loy beula me'urasa v'loy nesua. So now it says me'urasa v'loy nesua. She has to be what? An erisin and not nesua. Now my nesua. What do you mean nesua? Not nesua. Ilay nesua mamish. If she's married mamish. If she's mamish living with him, you already said that she's out of the ballpark because she's a buula. Elolav, it must be she nichlas l'chuppah v'lei nivala. Nesua must be what? She was nichlas l'chuppah v'lei nivala. So therefore, this nice space of Via teach me that once you give it over to the jurisdiction of the shluchi abal, no longer is she considered a arusa l'inyan naira murasa. Now the Gemara says, okay, this should be said like not a kasha, not a ve'ema. It's more mashmerat that it's a statement. We said if you give it of the shluchi abal, she's in the rishus of the baal, right? What happens if she goes back home? She's out of his rishus already, right? And therefore you get chenek. Guys, is this base of Via? She wasn't chuppah, right? You know, it's guys, watch. She's nichlas the chuppah. She goes back home. Is she in base of Via? No, she's in the sewer, right? But you're telling me this hybrid, this shluchi abal, we have exeris akasav, lisnois base of Via, correct? And therefore she's not murasa. What happens if she go back home now? She never was in the jurisdiction of, right? She was never in jurisdiction of what of the Baal. So maybe she can go back if she's in the jurisdiction of no backseas, right? But maybe not. It's beautiful. Gemara was beautiful. The logic of Gemara is beautiful. So the the hajul beinashia hajul and milsa kamaisa, and she would now be a naim murasa and get skill in that chenek. So Marava. Who kvar paska? We already paskin that. The Tana debei Rabbi Shmuel. The Tana Rabbi Shmuel. It says the pasuk says the neder almana ugerusha kol asher asu al nafsha yakam aleha. Okay, the neder of almana gerusha kol asher asu al nafsha yakam aleha. Any neder she would keep. In other words, there's no one who can take it off. She's an almana. She's gerusha. No one can take it off. Ma tamud loymar. Now, guys, when she's by daddy, daddy takes it off. When she's by a husband, husband takes it off. When she's a naira engaged, they both take it off. Good. That's the halach of nedarim. Now, if she's a gerusha and almana, no longer is she in the jurisdiction. So what is the Tana Rabbi Shmuel teaching me that she go ahead and take care of her nedarim? By svara we know you can take care of her nedarim. El hari shemasa av l'shluchi abal, or shemasu shluchi av l'shluchi abal, in this almala b'derech or in this karsha. Heichani koyba base avia shalzu or base baila shalzu. And loim lecha kim sheyotza sha'achas mishus av shuv ein yachal lahafer. Okay, so now very geschmack, guys. Here's the lima. Such a beautiful diukum over here. The Tana Yishmael teaches the following halacha. Now, again, when she's by daddy, daddy takes off the neder. When she's by a husband, husband takes off the neder. When she's in the between, naira marasa, they both take it off. Now you're telling me that when she dies, or when he dies, she's an almana, or a gerusha, she takes it off. Of course. Why shouldn't she? There's no jurisdiction over here. Ella, you know what? There's no jurisdiction over here. She is given over to the shluchei habal. That's what we're speaking about. We're speaking about where she went from daddy to him. And that mitzias, if her husband dies or divorces her, She's in her own jurisdiction. So you see, it's not based on via anymore. So there's no backseat. Even in Yanayim Marasa, you can't go back. Even in Yanayim Marasa, you can't go back. Right? That she would get chenek, right? Amar Rav Papa Afananami Tanina Haba al Naira Murasa Ein Chayiv Ache Naira Besula Murasa Vehi Bebeisa Via Abishlema Naira V'Lei Bageris Besula V'Lei Beula Murusa V'Lei Nesua Bebeisa Via Lemute Mai Lav Lemute Masar Av L'Shluchi Abal. Then when you give it over to Shluchi Abal, she's ready. It's not what Naira Murasa anymore. Right? Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak Afananami Tanina. We got another night, and that's a good raya. Haba Leishis Ish. Kimin shenichlas l'rishus habal nesuin, afa pishlei nivala, habola harizeh bechenek. Nichlas l'rishus habal ba'alma. What does that mean? That she's nichlas to rishus habal ma'alma. The Brisa says nichlas. It didn't say nichlas l'chuppah, right? El nichlas l'rishus habal. It didn't say nichlas l'chuppah. It said nichlas l'rishus habal, which would be the shluchi habal. Shema mino. You have a good raya that what once she's nichlas l'rishus habal, there's no backseat. She can't go back to being amor rasa. So tonight's shir was beautiful. Was just this. The way to remember it is this hybrid. Again, we always stress erisin, nisuin. Tonight's Gemara basically went through this middle stage of giving over the shluchi abal, and that's not the halacha seems like the Shmuel in Yerusha, in Truma. It seems that she would not be. But however, she does lose some erisin rights. The father does lose rights, erisin rights. She would never be able to go back now, Marasa, never go back to that state. Okay, have a good night.